I feel like I'm losing my mind.
The morning of April 23rd, 2026, at Incheon International Airport felt like something difficult to describe in ordinary words. The air was filled with a different energy, not just bustling but pulsating, as if the entire world were holding its breath in that same moment. Thousands of eyes were fixed on one spot, while millions more watched from behind screens, awaiting what they knew would be the beginning of the next big story. It wasn't just a departure day. It was the beginning of a journey that would make history. As the vehicles began to arrive and the doors slowly opened, the atmosphere immediately shifted. There was an aura that was hard to describe, not just because they were global stars, but because their presence carried something deeper: hope, longing, and a connection that had been built over the years. The members of BTS stepped out one by one, casually dressed, yet exuding an unconcealable charisma. Hoodies, sweatpants, casual shoes. Their simple outfits revealed their humanity amidst their status as global icons. Their faces may have been covered by masks, but their eyes spoke volumes. There was passion, there was longing, and there was an unconcealable impatience. The staff moved swiftly, ensuring every step was safe. But beneath all the security, there was a warmth that couldn't be hidden. The connection between BTS and ARMY felt so real, even across the distance. Every small wave, every nod of the head, it all felt like a personal message sent to millions of hearts around the world. Their steps toward the terminal weren't just walking. They were like a symbol that they were ready to return to where they truly lived: the stage. Then, amidst the already emotional atmosphere, an unexpected moment occurred. Jungkook appeared, and in an instant, all eyes were on him. Dressed in an all-black outfit that gave off a mysterious yet elegant vibe, he walked confidently. But something changed in a split second. Without warning, without a plan, he began to move, not walk, but dance. His movements were light, spontaneous, full of energy, as if he were dancing to the rhythm of music only he could hear. There was no stage, no official spotlight, but that's where the magic happened. The once tense airport was transformed into a place filled with laughter and awe. It wasn't just dancing, it was an expression of freedom. And the moment was made even more perfect when J-Hope joined in. The figure known as BTS's Sunshine instantly meshed with Jungkook's energy, creating an impromptu collaboration that felt like a small slice of a major concert. Only this time it was taking place in the middle of an airport. Two lead dancers, one spontaneous moment, and thousands of witnesses who knew they were witnessing something that would never be repeated in the same way. Observant fans even noticed something. Jungkook's movements seemed inspired by the song Red Red by artist Cortis, which had recently caught his attention. This was no coincidence. It was proof that even in the midst of preparing for a major tour, he remains an artist who continues to draw inspiration from everywhere. And perhaps that's why every performance feels so alive. But beneath that lighthearted moment, something much bigger awaited. This was no ordinary trip. This was the beginning of the Ararang World Tour, an ambitious project spanning 82 shows in 34 major cities around the world. A number that wasn't just huge, it was almost unimaginable. Their first destination? The United States. Specifically, Tampa, Florida, where Raymond James Stadium would witness their return to the big stage. 3 consecutive nights, April 25th, 26th, and 28th, 2026, with tickets selling out quickly. It wasn't just a concert, it was a celebration. A celebration of the long wait. A celebration of their journey. And most importantly, a celebration of the unbreakable bond between BTS and ARMY. On social media, a wave of support immediately flooded timelines. Safe flight, BTS, became more than just a phrase. It was a collective prayer from millions of people who felt connected to them, despite being separated by thousands of kilometers. Names like RM, Jin, Suga, Jimin, V, and Jungkook were no longer just individual identities. They were symbols of something much bigger. They were stories. Stories about dreams, hard work, and how music can unite the world. Departing from Incheon, that day wasn't just about moving. It was a symbol. that the kings had returned to their thrones, that the world stage would once again be filled with the energy that only they could create. But what many don't realize is that that moment in Incheon was just a small doorway to something much bigger. Because as soon as their plane took off, that new journey began to take shape, slowly but surely, like a story waiting to be told with surprises. As the plane carrying the BTS members took off, millions of fans around the world were still in a state of euphoria. Video footage of Jungkook and J-Hope dancing in the airport replayed on social media, fueling discussions, theories, and even adorable memes. Many ARMY felt that the moment wasn't just a cute moment, but a sign that the members were truly back in top form, happy, healthy, and ready to light up the world. But behind the scenes, the atmosphere was much calmer. Inside the plane, the members finally had a moment to breathe. The transcontinental journey to Tampa was not just a chance to rest, but also a time to regroup. They knew that what awaited them in America was no small feat. The Ararang tour wasn't just a schedule of shows. It was a new chapter that would determine the direction of their journey going forward. RM sat gazing out the window, watching the endless expanse of clouds. His face was calm, but his mind was constantly working. As a leader, he understood that this revival wasn't just for them. It was also for ARMY, who had waited years. Meanwhile, Jimin was seen chatting lightly with V, their smiles occasionally appearing behind their masks. There was a warmth, a camaraderie that felt so genuine. It was simple moments like these that made fans even more convinced that their connection as seven friends was real. Jin, now fully back after his hiatus, seemed to be enjoying returning to his routine with his younger brothers. Occasionally, he would crack a joke, filling the cabin with laughter. Suga, meanwhile, was calm, focused, but his gaze betrayed the energy he'd been storing up on stage. And of course, Jungkook, the youngest member, who couldn't hide his happiness even at the airport. He still had his earphones on and occasionally swayed his feet to the beat of the music, likely still playing Red Red. There was something beautiful about seeing someone enjoy music so purely, without cameras, without a stage, without pressure. Just him and the music. The long plane ride wasn't just a geographical shift. It was an emotional journey, because upon arrival in Tampa, there would be no room for hesitation. There would be no second chances. The Raymond James Stadium stage awaited them, and that meant hundreds of thousands of eyes would be upon them again, judging, feeling, and welcoming. And what was even more amazing, while their plane was still cruising, the Tampa Army had already begun to fill the area around the stadium. Purple banners were everywhere. Some had LED banners, some carried light sticks, some held flowers, and some even wore traditional Korean clothing as a sign of respect. 3 days of concerts, tens of thousands of people every night, and the noise was palpable before they arrived. The closer they got to America, the louder the collective pounding of these eager fans grew. Many armies cried, whether out of longing, pride, or because they were finally seeing BTS return to the stage after a long period of uncertainty. On social media, the hashtag Ararang World Tour Begins shot to the top of global trends. And even more touching, it wasn't just ARMY who were celebrating. Other fandoms, other artists, and even the global media were all showing their support. And amidst all the commotion, one simple message began to resonate. Bangtan is coming home to the stage. Then, on the plane, as dusk began to creep over the horizon, RM closed his book and looked at the other 6 members. There were no long words, just one simple sentence. Let's give them everything we've got. A sentence that sounded soft, yet carried incredible power. And the other 6 members nodded, in unison, solidly, with conviction, because they knew they weren't just returning as 7 men who had once stood on the biggest stage. They were returning as living legends. And when the plane finally broke through the last cloud and headed for the American mainland, this wasn't just a tour anymore. This is a moment that will change the world once again. See you in the next video. To be continued.